dystopian fourth wing. Okay, hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Silver Elite by Dani Francis. I read it, I annotated it, so let's talk about it. First and foremost, this video is going to be chock full of spoilers, but this book is not that great, so I don't really feel like you need to read this book to watch this video. Second thing, I did notice that Carrie Can Read came out with like a 2-hour long video about this book. I haven't watched it yet. I'll probably actually watch it today. But anyway, I have a feeling that she walks you through the whole story and reads you all the things. So I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to try to compete with Carrie Can Read. She's too awesome for that. There are a couple of things that I did want to talk about with this book, really relating to the conversations around YA, and specifically when people say that something feels YA even though it's supposed to be an adult book. I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, like so many thoughts on this topic that it would warrant a whole other video. But I think this book specifically really illuminates what people really mean when they say something feels YA. Like, I just feel like this is the one. Okay, hi, it's the next day, and I just wanted to pop in because when I was filming this, I did not know about the controversy surrounding this book, and like, I love a good scandal. So I filmed that whole video not really knowing about like the discourse or the controversy or anything that's going on, and so I wanted to pop in really quick and just like throw my 2 cents in about it. I don't think it really changes much about this video. I think it just honestly like makes a lot of sense with everything that I felt when I was filming this video. Okay, so really quick, there's a couple of things surrounding this book. Number one, the author has chosen to remain pretty anonymous. There's no author photo, there's a pretty vague bio in the book, and her social media account is also, I think, run by like assistants, like not even run by her. So a lot of people have started speculating as to why this author feels the need to be so secretive, especially because it's a debut novel and it got a lot of marketing. Some people have speculated that this is a pseudonym and is disguising an potentially prolific and already very popular author, and maybe they wanted to make a switch to a new genre, or maybe they're kind of controversial and they didn't want that controversy to follow them, or like whatever the case. Some people, I guess, have speculated that it's Colleen Hoover or Sarah J. Maas, and honestly, as much as I don't like those authors, I have now read this book and they're not like this bad. They're not like this incompetent. Like, I know, okay, that sounds so mean, but I guess what I mean to say is like this book is so cookie cutter, and it's not to say that like the Sarah J. Maas isn't necessarily cookie cutter, but she's like a Christmas cookie cutter, and this book is like just a regular circle cookie cutter. Like, it's so painfully basic. Anyway, there are also some questions that people have as to whether or not this was maybe AI written, which I think has been fairly pointed out as improbable because you can't copyright AI in the US, and so a lot of people have pointed out that a publisher probably wouldn't do that. So that's kind of highly unlikely. My take on this is, while it is fun to speculate that there is a nefarious reason as to why this author might be writing under a fake name, I do not think that it is super irregular for authors to write under a fake name and to care about their privacy, or it's also not irregular for a debut novel to take off and do so well. I think about The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. That one did really well. That one really popped off. That was a debut. Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss was a debut. In terms of like marketing though, and obviously throwing a lot of money at the marketing, I think that it could be, this is a book that's very much like Fourth Wing, and I could see a publisher being like, we think this is gonna have the same kind of success as Fourth Wing, but we maybe think it's gonna sell well, so we're gonna throw a lot of marketing at it. I don't, so like, as fun as that controversy is to speculate on, I don't know that I think it's really, you know, without more evidence, I'm kind of like, oh, like it's fun, but I don't know that I really fall into thinking that it is more nefarious than it seems. The other controversies though are beautifully in line with this video. So a lot of people are really upset with the marketing because I guess she compared it to the Hunger Games. Again, I did not know this when filming this video yesterday, and it is so funny to me because I shit you not, there was like a little section in my notes about how I wanted to kind of go on a rant about Katniss Everdeen and how good The Hunger Games is, and how these dystopian novels just fundamentally misunderstand Katniss Everdeen as a character, and how like she's written so well because she's very much a product of the world that she lives in. But then I like threw that out. At the time, I was like, this book has literally nothing to do with The Hunger Games. I'm just bringing up Katniss and The Hunger Games for the sake of it. It's unimportant, and so I'm just gonna toss the whole rant. But it's so funny to me now knowing that in the marketing, the author is like, this is Katniss for adults. This is The Hunger Games for adults. That's what she was inspired by. She did, I guess, come out and say that she was inspired by the 2010s dystopian novels, which is so obvious. I say that somewhere in this video, so there's that. But also, what I think is just so damning is that she claims that it's supposed to be these dystopian novels from the 2010s, these YA dystopian novels for adults. And my whole video is basically about how this book like is just not an adult book. It is YA caliber. Her thing was that she wanted to write one of these 2010s dystopian novels for adults, but with more spice. I think she specifically said more heat, but she means more romance and more spice. And of course, a lot of people are also really frustrated with the fact that this doesn't really feel like a very good dystopian novel because it misses all of the points of a dystopian novel. And I think this is really important, especially right now, because a lot of people feel, myself included, that we are living in a dystopian hellscape. And I think if you want to write a dystopian novel right now, it's not a bad time to do that, but I think this is a good time for something akin to The Hunger Games, which feels like it's actually saying something, or like Handmaid's Tale, which is actually saying something, as opposed to this book, where it feels like the only thing that this book is saying is there are good and bad people on both sides. It's just completely missing the point of dystopian novels and like why people resonate with dystopian novels. It's a bad book. It's a bad book, and I just wanted to pop in here and say that because I don't address the controversy at any other point in this video, but I think a lot of points that I made in this video originally still stand. So I think that's all I have to say about the controversy. Enjoy the rest of the video. Let me know your thoughts down below, absolutely, about like the controversy and your take on all of that. It's very fun to talk about, so I will let you guys enjoy the video now, so have fun. Okay, so I am going to give you a kind of brief overview and run you through the whole book because the things that I want to talk about do sort of require a certain amount of context. Also, as a side note, I will be getting the fuck ass bob soon. I'm very excited about it. So this will be the last time that I have all of this hair. It's so much hair. Like, I feel like we have to do a full, it's a lot of hair. I feel like we gotta do like a full, whoops. Oh God. Okay, let's talk about it. I think this one in particular feels like it's harkening back to the like 2010s dystopian books, but not Hunger Games. Instead, like all of the books that were desperately trying to be Hunger Games, but didn't really understand like why that worked so well. The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken, Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi, Legend by Marie Lu, Divergent by Alexandra Roth. Like, wait, Divergent by Alexandra Ross? Oh, Veronica Ross, right? Wait, Veronica Crossword, that's funny. Veronica Roth. I looked up Divergent author and one of the first hits was Veronica Crossword. Not her name. This book is a futuristic dystopian world in which people have certain abilities and these people are persecuted, they're hunted down and killed. The current government is trying to wipe them all out. Our main character, Ren, she is one of these aberrants, that's what they call them, and she lives with her uncle. He's someone who essentially rescued her when she was an orphan. He's aware of her abilities and is trying to help her learn how to use them. He helps her learn how to shield them, and he also taught her how to be like this fancy sniper. Their current cover is that they are ranchers. They've been ranching for like the past 12 years. Keep that in mind, by the way. They are ranchers. She has been a rancher for 12 years. She loves ranch. Not the sauce, not the salad dressing, but like the act of ranching. Hold on, I have to move this cat toy. So the story opens up with her uncle getting caught by the government. Apparently he was a deserter of the military a long time ago and also hid his own aberrant abilities. So they capture him and execute him. She is at his execution. She tries to use her own abilities to kind of stop the execution and of course gets caught, but the government doesn't know that she has abilities. Like nobody specifically caught her doing the thing. I guess this is a good time to tell you a little bit about these abilities. We're gonna talk more about them later because that is is one of my gripes with this book. But for now, just know these abilities are largely all mind-based. So for example, our main character can speak to people, she has telepathy, she can read people's minds, she can send images into people's minds, and she can also incite, which is like one of the most dangerous things, and essentially it's getting into someone's mind and then convincing them to do something that you want them to do. So the execution is firing squad style. They're all lined up. I don't know why this is gun. This isn't gun. Never in the history of hand gestures ever has this been gun. Anyway, so the firing squad lines up to kill her uncle, and she convinces them to turn the guns on themselves, but it doesn't work and her uncle dies anyway. She gets captured by the government. They know that an insider was there, but they don't know it was her. They take her into questioning. She's like the best to ever do it. She's the best to ever shield, and so she gets through this really rigorous questioning, but the main guy and our love interest, who's like the head of this super elite force in the military, has decided that he doesn't trust what she's saying at all and makes the insane decision to say, actually, we're going to recruit her for the elite squad and she's gonna go through the training because I want to keep an eye on her. The logic is not logicking. His name is Cross. Like, all these YA-ass dystopian men have the dumbest single syllable names. Day, Cross, For. They're all really insane. So she goes to this military to like train to become an elite soldier, but obviously she's like, hey, I don't want to do that. These people are bad. They're killing people that are like me and I don't want to have to hide so much. So she's like, I am going to try to fail out of this training for elite squad, but Cross just like simply will not let her. She's breaking rules, she's doing poorly on all of the tests on purpose, and he's just like, no, you have to stay here. I have to keep an eye on you. Also, he's like the hottest guy she's ever seen, and there's like tons of sexual tension. Like tons of it. Okay, this is just like how ridiculous and immature their like relationship kind of feels. This is Ren talking about Cross, obviously. I'm not supposed to be attracted to men like this. Possessive, cocky, ruthless. Yet the notion that I'd succeed in triggering his jealousy sends a thrill shooting through me. It's weird. I can't picture like a grown ass woman saying that. And again, like, yes, they're in their early 20s and maybe you can dismiss that. Maybe you can say that people in their early 20s are just as silly as people who are 16. But I feel like at 16, I would read this and be like, yes, girl, I get it. But at 20, I would read this and be like, I don't really know. And now at 27, I read this? Absolutely not. And I say this as someone who in their early 20s was still reading YA, but very much so starting to realize that I wasn't enjoying YA the same way anymore. It just wasn't resonating with me in the same way it used to when I was 16. So I'm saying this from personal experience as someone in their 20s who would have read something like this and been like, I just don't think this is representing where I'm currently at in my life. I think it is going to be of no shock to you that eventually she gets through the training, and within this really elite force, there's like another like super elite force called. She makes friends here and starts having a lot of complicated feelings about like, oh, but this is an evil military, but these people are also my friends. Everything is so complicated and interesting, except that it's not. There's also a resistance. She can reach out to them like telepathically, and repeatedly throughout her training, she's trying to contact the resistance, like, please, I beg you, get me out of this. It's dead silence. They like ghost her really hard. But one of their operatives who they sent in to infiltrate Silver Elite, who's also a person training with her, obviously she doesn't know this, ends up getting caught and shot. And then after that happens, the resistance reaches out to her and they're like, so what are your thoughts on becoming Silver Elite? She's like, okay, I guess if this is my only way out, then that's what I'm gonna do. And so she starts like getting really good at her training and acing all of the tests, and then becomes one of the Silver Elite. Finally, she also has this childhood friend that she linked with telepathically when she was a kid. She's never met him in person, but they both go by like code names. He goes by Wolf and she goes by Daisy because they picked these names when they were like really tiny kids. This book is so formulaic and it telegraphs itself so aggressively that it's really obvious from the jump that Wolf is Cross. Also, Cross is the son of, he's one of the sons of the current like leader of the government. So he's obviously like the ultra evil, but he's also secretly one of these aberrants and also happens to be her childhood best friend, Wolf, that she still is talking to throughout this book, by the way. And then she discovers it and they like laugh about it, and then they become even closer than they were before when they were just sexually involved. Now they're like, oh my God, it's my bestie. So that is like the basic of the plots of the book. Really quickly, let's run through some of the characters that matter the most. There are lots of characters in this book. Obviously a lot of like antagonistic characters. We're not really gonna like run through them because I just don't think it's really that important. So obviously we have Cross. He is the hot, moody boy with a secret. Ren, who's the horny, moody girl with a secret. She's also impulsive as fuck, which, all right. Kane, who is the secret resistance member. You don't learn this until literally the very end of the book, but again, this book telegraphs itself. It is so obvious that he is the like resistance pilot that everyone has been like super jacked about. He's the funny, like really flirty side character. We also have Liddy, who is the very like too sweet for this world character, and she's the one that Ren starts to feel very like, oh, sweetie, kind of about. Tana, however you want to say that. I think Tana is Ren's like actual friend from her ward. She's also an aberrant. She's not like hugely important, but later in the book, Ren ends up kind of getting her sent to like one of these worker, basically like concentration camp sort of things. And we're gonna talk about that like briefly. So that's why I bring her up now. But for most of the book, Tana is honestly not a very big part of it. Cross has two other brothers, one older, one younger. The younger one is also in the program with everyone else, like training to become Silver Elite. He is the like psychopath, cartoonishly evil freak boy. He's like a bastard son, but was still treated really lovingly by the father. And then Travis, I think, is the older one. We do not see him a lot, but he is also supposedly super evil. My first big gripe with these books that do feel very YA is that they are really formulaic. And I will say I am not the kind of person who needs every book that I read to feel wholly original and like a brand new concept every time I read it. In fact, one of my favorite books that I've read recently in the last couple of years is Margot's Got Money Trouble by Ruthie Thorpe. I cannot shut up about that book. And honestly, on its premise, not that crazy original. It is essentially about a woman who gets pregnant at a really young age, has to drop out of college, and ends up dipping her toes into sex work to help provide for herself and her new kid. Like, that's not really an original concept, but what makes the book feel so original and so heartfelt is that it's really emotionally complex. It's a very tender book, and it's not necessarily what you would expect from that kind of story. It's also really funny and feels really unique. All of the characters have their own voice, and it doesn't feel like a paint by numbers book in the way that something like Silver Elite does. I honestly feel like this big push for a lot of people who are re-entering the reading realm makes sense that so many people would gravitate towards books that do feel a little bit more YA, that do feel a little closer to those 2010s tropes, because for a lot of people, they haven't read and enjoyed books since they were in high school, and those are probably the last books that they remember really loving. So for me, I think it makes a lot of sense that people would like move into these books and feel a lot of comfort in them because they feel like the last thing you remember loving reading. I don't have a problem with that. I love people finding books, regardless of how I feel about those books. I want you to love reading and enjoy what you're reading. So I just wanted to put that out there because this video is like very negative, but I don't want you to feel like I'm shitting on you for enjoying this book. The other thing I kind of want to point out in this is that this book feels weirdly pro-military for a dystopian book. This one, I don't know why, it's just very weird. The whole like vibe of this book is that there are good and bad people on both sides. Page 187. So she's just talking to like another student in her class, and he like lashes out with this, the aberrants weren't good either. Talking about when the like aberrants were in power. I roll my eyes at him. You weren't even alive when President Severin was in power. No, but my parents were. My father is a surgeon. Did you know that? I didn't. He didn't start his training until I was born. And you know how old he was when I was born, Darlington? 30. From the ages of 16 to 30, he cleaned sewers. He was the smartest kid in his class, and those aberrant quats assigned him to sanitation. Why? Lash sneers. Because he was a lowly piss vein. His blood wasn't elite. He couldn't heal using some toxic fucking energy coursing inside him. He needed to use his brain for that. But Severin and his cabinet wouldn't let him. I'm not saying Severin's reign was a good one, I say backpedaling, and we go back to memorizing codes. And oftentimes the resistance is really painted as being incredibly callous. We see this a lot with Ren in trying to communicate with the resistance and how they're constantly very apathetic to her plight, and even when she does join the resistance, they're also kind of constantly like, you're on a need to know basis, we're not going to tell you anything, we're not going to help you in any way, just do what we tell you to do, and that's it. I'm gonna wait until my cat is done using the litter box. I literally just watched him like throw litter out of the holes in the door. They're like little paw prints. It's like a design thing. What an asshole. Anyway, so I said at the beginning that this book is a really excellent example of when something feels YA, and I was trying to figure out like exactly what I even meant by this, because I do have certain lines. I mean, obviously I highlighted a lot in this book, and there are a lot of these highlights that specifically do exist to exemplify the point of like, this feels very YA. There's a few points where the male like lead character says things and I'm just like, oh, that's so like, well, that's so edgy. That's so something that 16-year-old me would be like, ooh, this boy is so dreamy. But as an adult, I read that and I'm like, oh my God, get over yourself. Instead, he says, weakness doesn't belong here. In Silverblock, we eat the weak. We cut them out like a cancer. Okay, I don't know. It's not that serious. There's also this air of like in YA, a lot of times these young characters obviously are not of adult age yet. They're like, depending on what YA you read, especially if you go back in like the way olden days, they can be as young as like 14 up to like 17. And a lot of times there's this air of like, oh, adults will never know that I'm so capable and that I alone can like run this resistance. And there's this scene in this book that is exactly that feeling, but with our main character and the resistance. So this is officially like Ren is in the resistance and she's basically telling her handler like, I don't want to take blind orders. And the resistance is like, you will do whatever we tell you to do. And she's like, I'm not going to take blind orders. And this is the little speech that the resistance lady gives in response to that. And it's just very YA coded. It is very, you're a teen and you need to shut up and listen to the adults. She turns back, eyes flashing with irritation. It's too dark to tell what color they are. I don't know why that matters. Anyway, I risked my ass to come here tonight. And I don't need some 20-year-old novice questioning our protocol. You don't have any say here. None at all. Fucking zero. You don't get to make a single decision. You don't get to use your brain to do what you think is right, unless it's to improvise on an op so your cover isn't exposed. But the missions, the objectives, those are handed down to you by the adults. And like a good little girl, you implement them. Your only job is to do whatever the hell you're asked. Okay, like, listen. I get that when you're in your early 20s, you are still very young. You're still very mushy brained. And I do respect that the resistance is like an organization that's actively trying to do something. And our main character is also insanely impulsive. So there is a certain level here where I think a speech like this is not unwarranted. However, even at 20 years old, I think if someone were to talk down to me like this so hard, I would not be okay with it. There would definitely be more of an air of, I am actually an adult and you do still need to treat me like an actual adult. I am not a child anymore. This is the resistance in a dystopian novel. Like, you're supposed to love the resistance in a dystopian novel, but they're honestly painted really rancid, which is just this weird, like, pro-military vibe that I feel like you get. This air of like, there are bad people on both sides. And also, who would want to join a resistance like this? Like, Ren really has only joined them because they're desperate and she's desperate, but it doesn't really feel like she strongly believes in the convictions of the resistance, even though she's like, well, I don't want aberrants to die, obviously, but she also seems more interested in everything the military is doing than more so than like the resistance. So it's just kind of weird all around. There are so many times in this book where I have annotations. This is one of them where I predict that something is going to happen in the book based on genuinely just what is happening in the book and what I know about these kinds of books, and 100% of the time my predictions were correct. And I'm not saying this to be like, I was so smart, I figured out this whole book, but it's more just to say, like, this book is so formulaic that it doesn't even deviate from any kind of trope in this type of book. Okay, so here on page 389, the characters are talking about how the Resistance did a bombing recently, but the bomb actually missed, and they're kind of making fun of the pilot. So the Resistance has this like crazy, cool, super awesome pilot, and he's supposed to be like the best, and so they're like making fun of him now. They're like, ooh, I guess he's not maybe the greatest pilot ever. The bomb didn't hit our cache though, Tyler prompts, glancing at Cross. Correct. Ford gives a sardonic laugh. Guess their hotshot pilot must be losing his touch. Kane leaned back in his chair. I bet it was some rookie. From what I've heard, the famous one never misses. So obviously Kane is the hotshot pilot. I even put a note here, okay, Kane is the pilot. Like, that to me is so obvious. Later, they all go out on a mission and Kane is with another operative, it gets bombed, and everyone thinks Kane is dead. And when that happens, I'm like, Kane is not dead. Kane is the Resistance pilot. It's a Resistance bombing that like kills Kane, and the Resistance gets away with a plane. So I'm like, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that Kane is the pilot. And here we are, page 510, I wrote, called it. Because it's Kane. My mind spins to fill in all the blanks. You infiltrated the program for what? Just to steal a new piece of technology? A plane? They placed you there for a plane? He shrugs. Well, yeah. Why? Because I was the only one who could fly it. My jaw drops, although it takes a second, understanding finally strikes. Gray. She called him Gray. You're Grayson Blake, I accuse. Mr. Hotshot Pilot. I like, it's so predictable. Anyway. Okay, honestly, I've gotten like so sucked into the predictable part of it, I sort of lost what my point was. Basically, all of this to say, when people complain that something feels YA, they mean that it feels like the characters are being treated like children, they're acting like really horny teens, and they're being edgy unnecessarily. And also the book is really formulaic and predictable because a lot of these books are following the same formula. I think if I would have read this when I was 16 and it was one of like the first dystopian books I read, I probably would have really loved it. And so there is a sort of nostalgia level to this. I think that's part of the reason that I was able to have so much fun reading this, is because I was sort of entertaining that inner child in me. But at the end of the day, this doesn't feel like the kind of book that you would find in an adult dystopian section. It's not very complex, and I don't mean that it's not just like story-wise complex. It's not that the world isn't complex. It's not that the characters aren't complex, even though that's all true. It's that it's just not emotionally complex. This whole posturing to both sides have good and bad people isn't particularly interesting when every single character that you present is very black and white. I don't feel like many of these characters are particularly morally gray. Even our main character does do some bad things. Like I mentioned earlier, she got her friend Tana essentially sent to a war camp. And later, when she's competing to get into Silver Elite, one of the things you have to do is there's like 12 contestants, they pair you up, and then only 6 of them can make it into the like Silver Elite. And you don't necessarily have to kill people. In fact, our main character is the only person who does kill someone in this, but it's presented as an accident. Her friend Tana going to a concentration camp is presented more as a miscalculation on Tana and her father's side than it really is on Ren's side. Even though Ren feels really bad about it, you as the reader can still understand that Ren and her father were only caught because they ran away. The context here being that Ren knows that an operation is about to be sent to where Tana and her father are. She's really worried for their safety, even though they've like been very cautious thus far. And she tells them that this crazy operation is headed their way, and they get spooked and they run and they get caught because they run. And Ren feels really bad about this because the Resistance specifically told her not to tell Tana. And so she's like, because I told Tana, they ran and it's all my fault. But also like, her and her father Ran, and Ren sort of like gets them this deal to send them to a concentration camp as opposed to executing them, which in this scenario is like kind of the best case, right? Like your friend is still alive, you can still hopefully try to get her out someday, but the book still doesn't really present it as all that morally gray. It still feels very black and white. Like, what else were you going to do in this situation? You at least saved your friend's life. The second one, where Ren kills a girl. So this whole thing is presented as only one of you can get into Silver Elite. There's a room in there, there's a knife, but like, no, you don't have to kill the other person. The other person can tap out and that person will still be in the elite squad. They just won't be in the like super duper elite squad. Ren and this girl are wrestling. This girl refuses to tap. She's kind of obviously losing. Her dad is watching, so it's like really awkward. And Ren ends up stabbing her accidentally in the femoral artery, I believe the one in your leg. And of course, the girl bleeds out and Ren feels really bad about it. She's the only one who ended up killing the other person. And I think this is also supposed to be presented as like, oh, this world is so harsh. Like, oh my God, it's so complicated. But also, did they not teach you how to knock someone out in your super elite military training? Honestly, I don't even know why you needed to stab her. And also, if you could just accidentally stab someone in the femoral artery and kill them in seconds, that feels really bad. It feels like you probably shouldn't be on a like super elite team. Okay, with that out of the way, finally, let's get into the other thing that I want to talk about. So honestly, I want to talk about the magic system, the magic system. This is a very personal gripe because this system is so bad. It is so poorly laid out. It is so boring and I don't understand it. As a fantasy lover, as a D&D player, I love a good magic system. I'm always really interested in them, which is why this is like such a personal gripe for me, because this to even call it a magic system feels very bad, but essentially this like ability system is very, very poorly written. It doesn't really make a lot of cohesive sense, along with being someone who does not need originality from a book. Like, I also am a big believer in suspension of disbelief. This book does not encourage suspension of disbelief because I wasn't having so much fun that I was able to ignore the fact that this system of abilities not very interesting. Some people in this world are born with abilities. It doesn't matter if your parents do or do not have those abilities. That is not a marker of whether or not you will be born with it. Some people are only born with one of these abilities. Some people are born with multiples of these abilities. And of course, some people are stronger than others. I believe all people born with multiple abilities have a red circle birthmark on them somewhere on their body. It super marks you as aberrant, more so than other things. Also, people who use their aberrant abilities, their like veins start to turn silver. Like they get all lighted up. So it's really obvious when someone is aberrant if they're trying to like read your mind, because their arms will light up like a Christmas tree. But some people, very rarely, very few people can use their abilities, like our main character, without having the light up veins. So it's a lot easier for her to hide. Our main character also has the little circle mark on her thigh, but when she was a kid, as soon as it popped up, her uncle threw boiling water on it, burned her up, scarred her up to hide the mark. As horrific as it sounds, it is, of course, still a really good idea. Later in the book, she makes the absolutely insane decision to have the scars healed. She does this to like prove her love to Cross. She's like, I want to prove to you that there are no more secrets. And of course he's like, why the fuck would you do that? That was literally the only thing hiding you from the world. And of course, her friend Liddy sees the mark and immediately turns her in, and that's like the ending of the book, basically. It really does feel like the healing of the scars is not to prove her love to Cross, more so it's to provide a catalyst for like the end of the book and for her to get caught and for things to go the way they do. Here are the abilities that I know of. I wouldn't be surprised if, as the series goes on, more abilities get introduced, because of course at the end of the book we have a reveal of an ability, but also every time someone talks about these, there is not a very like cohesive, here's what's out there, here's what people can do, but here's what I have. Here's what I have so far of what I know all of the potential abilities to be. So obviously mind read, telepathy, insight, image production, mind scramble, which is the new one that's introduced at the end of the book. It's also even more rare than inciting, and essentially you can get into someone's brain and completely scramble their mind and essentially make them like schizophrenic. Healing, which is so out of like, I genuinely believe this only exists so that you can have the catalyst for the end of the book, because our character is essentially so ungettable that the author like has to come up with some way for her to eventually like get got, you know, like for her to get discovered. And so she's like, oh, well, what if there are people in this world who can just like heal you? Every other ability here entirely has to do with the mind, but the healing is just like, there's just some people who can like heal you. I don't know. It really bothers me. Oh, and like also, I guess some people can see the future, but this is never really explained. There's this one aberrant who's like working for the government. She's like a loyalist. She can read people's minds like no other, like break down shields like crazy. She's like a huge tool for the government. And one of the things that she can do is sort of read the future, but this is like never really discussed. It's weirdly never even mentioned as one of the abilities when people like list abilities, at least that I remember. I could be totally wrong about that, but people don't really list it as an ability, but they also completely accept that this woman can read the future. At one point during the training, she comes by, she like snatches this soldier out of the training, and she's like, he is going to get his whole unit killed someday. And he's like, I didn't even do anything. I haven't even done anything yet. And she's like, my visions are never wrong. Out of the program. As far as I remember, this is the first time that this sort of thing is mentioned from my memory. And then later, this woman also comes into this room when our main character, when Ren is like planting bombs for the resistance. And she's like, I saw you plant these bombs. My visions are never wrong. And it's just so confusing, because also if you can see the future, like how does that work? Do you just randomly get visions? Can you choose to get visions? Why do you not know so much more? If you can see the future, why did you not see the brain scrambling? Like introducing being able to see the future, but also not explaining how that works with characters is a wildly insane choice. It opens up so many questions. Who else can see the future? Is this, I mean, I don't even know, like I'm assuming that this is not a common ability, but like if there's other people out there who can, I mean, how would you fight that? Like I don't know. I don't know what this ability is. Anyway, now listen, like I said, this is a very personal gripe, and I don't even necessarily have anything like so deep to say about this, but it does really bother me that something that is so integral to the world and so important to the characters is kind of written in as a convenience device. Basically, from this point on, the author can make up any ability that is going to work in her world. There's no rules, there's no like system of consistency, and maybe it's just because I'm such a big Brandon Sanderson fan and I'm so spoiled by his strict magic systems. Like Brandon Sanderson's magic systems are always really exciting because he basically lays the foundation. He's like, here are the rules of the world, and you always understand them really well. And then as a series goes on, he takes those rules and he never is like, just kidding, all of that was a lie, but instead within the rules that he's created, he starts sort of like twisting and bending, and other people are learning how to like bend the rules. It's always so interesting. And so when I see a magic system like this that essentially like it doesn't exist, there's no laws for consistency, there's no rules here. The author can create any kind of ability that she wants later in the series to become convenient for a character or to get people in and out of situations. It becomes entirely a plot device at this point. Like this system exists for convenience sake, and I just don't like that. I think it's really obvious. It makes the story, at least for me, less enjoyable, because now anytime characters do something with these powers or like a new power is introduced, I always kind of roll my eyes because I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess. All of that said, Silver Elite is a very basic book. It's not doing anything particularly original or interesting. It has no real nuance or complexity and is very much trying to both sides a conflict in a very weird and non-committal way. I didn't really like it despite thinking it was a blast to read. Honestly, I just think half of my fun was in annotating it. I made my own fun with this book. Those are my thoughts on this book. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you did, and leave a comment telling me if you've read Silver Elite, what your thoughts were, if you liked it or didn't. And also definitely let me know your thoughts on just the YA-ification of literature and how you feel. It's a very big topic, and like I said, someday I would like to do a more in-depth, like very real video on the topic. But until then, this is just kind of me like dipping my toes into the water of that topic, because it's massive, and I know that so many people have so many thoughts about it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you guys in another video, potentially with or without the bob. We're very excited. We're very excited. I'm really looking forward to it. So I will see you guys next time with another video. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.